and I am the host of the Conversation Live Chat. I am a author, advocate, and I'm also a survivor of male child sexual abuse and rape. We're now on season 2 of the Conversation Live Chat, and we now have a brand new setup, and we're kind of going more in depth in the conversation compared to season 1 that we had. And as I did in season 1, I'm going to talk about my intention and my purpose in creating this platform. So first of all, my intention is to allow each man that I'm going to be having a conversation with about their sexual trauma to get an opportunity to tell their story in their own voice and allow them more to talk about how they've gotten to where they are right now. We're not going to talk about the sexual trauma and the intricacy of what really happened, but we're going to really allow them to tell their story of how they have gone from the traumatic experience to becoming a survivor. Now, my purpose in doing all this is to allow you, the audience who are watching, to get a better understanding of what male sex abuse is all about. Too often we get so caught up and consumed with the graphic nature of the sexual assault, and I think we need to focus more on seeing each individual as a survivor. It is hard enough for each person to live daily through the trauma. So by doing this, hopefully those of you who are watching will get a better understanding of what these survivors had to have been going through over the years and where they are currently. So I have the honor and the privilege of yet again interviewing a friend of mine, someone who has been very, very instrumental in the work I've been doing, the platform that I've been using over the years. And I'm not going to go into much detail because as the conversation evolves, we're going to hear more about his story. So I'm going to introduce to you Jason Hunter. So Jason, thank you so much for doing this. I've been trying to have this one-on-one conversation and live chat with you the first season.
Yep.
So before we go into the conversation, just tell the viewers who you are and where you are right now.
Well, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, obviously, because this has been a long time in the making, schedules and stuff like that. But I'm Jason Duval Hunter, and I am primarily an actor, singer, writer, dancer, and I have an education from the University of Buffalo in theater and dance. When I came out of UB in the 90s, I immediately went into doing work in television and film and mostly theater. Fast forward to today, I started my own production company where I'm developing a show based on my childhood trauma and life experience with sexual abuse called Cyber Sex to Play. And I am a street performer who has been written up in the New York Times and Huffington Post has said some things about me in terms of that stuff, developing characters and music for that play. So that's where I'm at today.
All right. So this is just freestyle. There's no paper before me, just me and you as two friends. Mm-hmm. So let me just give the introduction of our connection. So I've known you for probably about 7 years, somewhere thereabouts. And
time flies.
Whoa,
crazy.
It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So Jason was one of our board members with ODI. Apart from that, Jason was very instrumental in being our facilitator for I think about 5 or 6 cycles for our conversation.
The conversation that has evolved. Into
yes, so the conversation has evolved into this live chat, doing this one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go any further, can you just explain how has the conversation evolved for you, and what was that whole process like being the facilitator for such a long time?
Yeah, well, when I met you, I was working on my show, and you came to see my show, and it really was dealing with the scenes in the show was dealing with the explicitness, which we're not going to go into
Yes,
here,
no, we're not.
of the abuse. And one of the things that I was interested in doing was having an organization like yours be connected with people that would come to see my play, to have a resource to deal with having not only the actors taking on the material, but people that come see the play that needs a place to get information. And so we started kind of a collaboration, and I got involved with being on the board, and then the conversation was developed. And it was the most important work that I feel I've done to date, and I'm glad that you are
No,
continuing with
it has
you know.
really, really evolved, and we're gonna continue the conversation in 2018. We're really fortunate to have gotten two locations, one in Brooklyn,
That's
one
awesome.
in, I think it's Midtown Manhattan, and thank for the person who have been very grateful to give us that free spot.
Yes.
But one of the things I really admire about you being in the conversation and facilitating it, you were able to tell your story without really telling the story, because you were the one who literally spearheaded the group
Mm-hmm.
and what was going on. And you knew for the most part there was either a clinician or a therapist that was somewhere sitting
Yep.
there, but you were the one that guided it. I had a conversation with you earlier that for our seventh cycle, we've decided to change the approach somewhat,
Mm-hmm.
and we're now deciding to take somewhat of a more structured approach.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you know, recently I was on the Fix My Life with
Yes,
Yana.
I was watching it. Yeah.
So, what I've decided to do is I decided to take some of the skill set, some of the tools that were given to us while on the show, and bring it into the conversation. But not only were you involved in the conversation group for the cycles that we've run thus far, you were very much a part of not only our first photo exhibition, but you were a part of the
Yes.
second exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to both give kudos to Michael.
Michael Lela
Jr.,
Jr., man, oh my God, it's
Because
amazing.
Michael has
to get
done a
that done.
phenomenal job in just highlighting us as young men.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second cycle after photo exhibition, when he dealt with the ripple effect.
Yes.
So the viewers are able to see the first one. The 1st
Mhm.
one is easy.
Yes.
It's you holding up a picture of young Jason.
Yeah, and
And-
what has happened since
Yes.
that young child to where I was then? as
No,
an adult.
I think that the second one, even though there's no caption there,
Right.
I think the picture itself is very captivating.
I
That is
thought it
you
was
by
interesting.
yourself.
In the woods.
So,
Mhm.
what was that whole? Well, first of all, how did you and Michael came up with that concept?
Well, let me just piggyback on what you were saying about the connecting the dots on why we already kind of discussed off camera about how everything kind of evolves and happens. Nothing is by coincidence.
Yep.
And, you know, the fact that you just did Fix My Life and this work that you're doing with this organization, it seems like the universe is bringing and opening this conversation up. And prior to you asking me to be a part of the photo exhibit, yes, I was writing the play and I was doing that, but I was in character. So as a writer of the play and as a performer on stage, I was still not Jason Hunter that I am today, that would participate in the photo exhibit or come out to the Schomburg or even do this conversation on this line now. And with the second photo, Michael and yourself, I guess the concept was like, well, what were the ramifications?
Yes.
And there were several different categories that we could choose from. And I chose, because I'm a creative person, I chose a form of prostitution, but it wasn't really saying literally that. If you look at the a photograph, it was more of a person who is extremely successful, who for whatever reason can go from being at a black tie event because I'm in haute couture, but yet find himself in the park after dark on his knees, with dirt on his knees,
Yeah.
and still devaluing himself, irregardless of his outward appearance of success. And I think that happens certainly with me to a certain degree, with different things, be it I've never been a prostitute or anything like that, but I wanted to choose that one because I felt like that was kind of a really powerful image to say that just because someone looks healed, that the healing process is ongoing.
You know, as I've gotten older, I realize that the clothing we wear not only can look as mask, but it can be facade for things that we're hiding.
It's
on the
camouflage.
inside. And what you depicted is what so many successful survivors have gone through, where you're either functional alcoholic, so you go to work every day, you get up on time, do what you need to do in the office, but after work you're hit the bar and you drink as much as you can drink and totally wasted, but yet you get up the next morning being functional. The
With
same
that
thing
particular image,
with drugs.
yeah, it's the same thing with drugs. With that image, I wanted to show how we could look pristine, head to toe labels, but what are you doing after dark?
Yes. So, in order for us to get here and even have this conversation, to be a part of the photo exhibition and to be in the group that we're a part of, we have to get to a vulnerable place. So, what does vulnerability look like for you?
Well, this is vulnerable. Listen, I was on my way up here and I had no idea what I was going to talk about, what you were going to ask me, when is this going to go on, how many people are going to see it. And, and I have to tell myself every day I get up, to my higher power and my prayers show me the way. You show me the way. Vulnerable is showing up and going with the flow. And that is the fear that most people, they stop themselves, they take themselves out of the game because they don't know. And a lot of stuff we think we know, but we have no idea. I have my calendar and I have my I have a whiteboard in my home office and I have my bullet points of what I think I'm gonna do for that day. Most of the stuff I don't get done because I am going where I'm supposed to be. So vulnerable is showing up and going with the flow.
I've said to people so many times, to whom much is given, much is expected. You've known me for a very long time, and this has never been one about money. It has never been about exposure. And I've now learned how to own that vulnerability. But there's a book that I showed for the most part in season 1. It's called Daring Greatly. And it's written by Dr. Brené Brown. And in dealing with vulnerability, we first have to address shame. And as survivors, there's so many things that we have done to numb the pain.
Yes.
So, first I'm going to ask you, how did you numb your pain? How did you cope over the years? And the follow-up question that is, how did you deal with the shame even now?
Well, how did I cope with it?
Yeah.
I ultimately I chose to and I had to get therapy. I found after like several therapists, a one-on-one therapist that I worked with that helped me to get, because I was so angry and just pissed off at the set of circumstances that had me in this place all these years later, still conflicted and confused and angry at my past. And so years and years of therapy, and then unfortunately, and this is something that I'm dealing with even today, I isolate myself. I'm very, very particular about who I allow to get close to me. I've cut off literally my entire family on the side of my cousin. and I talked about this in therapy recently. I was like, they had absolutely nothing to do with this. But I was like, when I leave this town, I am never coming back. And call it a Virgo thing or survivor's thing, but my coping was I never went back. And my family misses me, I know they do. And my relatives reach out to me on social media and stuff, and I'm not overtly rude, but I haven't gone to no holidays or nothing like that, you know what I mean? And it's not good. But it's what I had to do to survive to be here.
All right. So, what was your choice of drug? So,
my choice of drug, alcohol, I would say. Alcohol for sure. Yeah, for a long time.
So, I understand that you're now stepping in, stepping out in being vulnerable right now.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, how have you dealt with the shame? Because I've seen the play at least 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And there's so much graphic things within there. How did shame play a part in you just standing in your truth to come publicly? And even though you were in character, you're playing yourself.
I didn't play myself, actually.
Did you play yourself at one point?
I played my cousin. I played the cousin that molested me.
Oh yes, you played
I made
the
the choice
perpetrator.
to do that.
Not
yeah.
you, yes.
And that
yes,
was
yes.
as vulnerable as it gets, because, you know, when I wrote the confrontation scene, my advisors and my mentors at the time was like, you have to make this character real. And I was like, he's the boogeyman, I'm gonna kill him. that's gonna be my that I get to do that as the writer, right? And it's like, no, you know, we have to understand what made him do that. I was like, screw him. And then when I wrote the scene and I finished the scene, I almost like, I remember closing my computer. It's like, I cannot let anyone see this. I cannot let anyone see this. And then I remember when I first did it in rehearsal, with the whole cast and everybody, I because I was the perpetrator, I wasn't supposed to be the vulnerable one there. It was the actor that was playing me, my role, which is the character's name is David. And I remember holding it together, being the boogeyman, and running off stage and passing out, like crying like crazy. So that was the most vulnerable, but, you know, writing that and letting that be seen by audiences in New York Pride a couple of years ago at the George Faison Theater, and letting it be seen by people like you and hopefully Broadway one day is vulnerable. And playing the role of the person that did this against me is not only me as being a little sadomasochist as an actor, but just I feel like that's a cathartic thing to say, I'm really over it, and I want to get this message out to other people that on the other side of that silence and that shame and living in that truth, as Ayana said in the show, is power and healing.
So often people try their method in terms of, and I'm going to use a cliche, how to fix us, how to fix our life. And more and more as people watch the show, they're like, are you completely fixed?
Right.
Nah, there's still things that no matter what happens, you're still going to go through. So you know for a fact that we started a conversation group as an alternative to the traditional method of going to therapy.
Exactly.
You and I have had our personal one-on-one therapist.
And group therapy for me. That's why I was able to create.
So for those who are watching us, so for me, I don't go to therapy anymore. My therapist has no retire. I've decided not to do any more one-on-one. I'm very eager to go back to the conversation group because I go back for the brotherhood. Having a group of men we can have conversation, like-minded, and going in that formal setting with them. If I were to unleash something, I know for a fact I'm not going to get judged. And I don't have to really go into much detail to explain what's going on, because firsthand they know what's going on, because they can easily identify. So do you believe that there's a difference between traditional therapy, which is going to one where you're sitting down on a sofa in a chair, there's a clock looking at you, 45-minute session, versus doing what we did in that group?
Listen, I think that we live in a society that is very complicated, and being a victim or a survivor of molestation and coming from the culture that we come from is a big stigma behind going to the doctor for a cold, let alone sexual trauma and confliction. So wherever you can get it, you know. So the people that came to our group, a lot of them didn't want to go to therapists because maybe they didn't have insurance, or maybe they didn't trust the doctor, or maybe they didn't feel like the people would understand them.
Yes.
But what I say is we have been afforded the opportunity, the option to have traditional therapy. For me, almost like I forget the amount of years, and you cannot take that, like that allows me to be able to sit in this truth and be able to allow someone to speak to me in a way that they feel safe, because I know what it is to pour my heart out to someone and trust that they're not going to tell anyone or judge me.
Okay.
So when I sit across from someone, they can sense that I'm not going to judge them, and I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to hold that in confidence, but I'm going to be listening, because I'm sharing with such an openness because of years of one-on-one therapy and years of group therapy. So I'm saying that the short answer of it is I recommend therapy for depending on the severity of your childhood abuse. But if you can do group therapy, like what we have set up with the conversation or what your organization have set up, I say you should do that, but you certainly shouldn't sit at home and thinking it's going to go away. It is not. It is not going to go away.
So let me go into another segment I tend to ask everyone. If you were to have a conversation with your younger self, young Jason, and let me see. Let's go to teenage Jason before you went into college and left home and gained your independence. If you were to have a conversation with young Jason, what would you say to Jason?
Don't worry about everything so much. Stop worrying. Seriously, you have a long ass way to go. And you really got a long way to go. And the thing about it is, I have a quote on my social media page. You know, they ask you, what's your favorite quote? And my quote is, don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all small stuff.
It really makes sense.
You know what I mean? Because if I knew then what I know now, I would like 95% of the things that I thought was the end of the world was not. I have my diaries to prove it. Like, the stuff I just thought was...
I won't even call your age up, because you know I've told you on so many occasions that I really marvel that Black don't crack and how old you are.
Well, next year I'm going into another decade, so they can guess there what that decade is. And it's not 30.
And it's not 40 either.
And it's not 40 either.
All right.
So they can do the math.
So for where you are right now, how is Jason coping?
It's day by day, man. It's day by day. You know, with things like Vegas and Pulse, and my union leader, SAG-AFTRA union leader, Mr. Mike Hodge, just passed away. He just got reelected. We were working together on things. 70 years old. He dropped dead. I just went to the memorial yesterday. So how am I coping? I'm glad to be here and taking it day by day, doing really well, moving forward with the one-man show and the music. You know, I have a recording that's out on iTunes and iHeartRadio and things of that nature. So I'm very blessed. I'm glad to be here, specifically here, to continue to support you and this organization, because I believe in this work, you know, you know, everything happens in divine order. That's it.
So we're struggling a lot in getting the younger folks to be a part of the conversation. And we are struggling with older folks coming on board, just standing in their truth, just being present, being vulnerable, and be that lighting, shining armor for the younger generation.
Be the example.
Yes, to be the example. So, what do you think we probably could do differently?
It's not about doing things differently. It's about being consistent in what you do.
Okay.
So just continue to do this, continue to provide opportunities of safe spaces for people to come to, whether they come or not. Continue to reach out, like we do through social media, through phone calls and emails. And when people see, look at the photo exhibit. It started out with an idea that was, you dug yourself out of a deep old hole to get those actual first pictures to see the light of day. They almost did not see the light of day.
Because we got no money.
And then you went from there and you did a whole nother concept that went through its own sort of thing. And then the conversation started out with one, so like I say, it's not about having 10,000 people at the next meeting conversation. It's about being consistent and continue to do it because they will come.
So I guess at the point where I'm going to start begging some money because we don't get public funding either from the feds or local government.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are interested in seeing more of our live chat series, please go directly to our website. It's obdi.org, and feel free to make a donation. The donation starts at $5. I think it caps at probably about $5,000. So we really need the help. We really need the support, and it's very important for us to have these open-ended conversations.
Yes.
For people to not see us as victims but more as survivors. Yeah. And there's so many other men who are going through what we have gone through. And they're just trying to figure how do they get to that next level. And it's not always easy. So I'm trying to get more people like you to come on board and I'm not looking for the polishness. I'm not looking for none of that. I'm not looking for people who are overly successful and have a whole heap of money. I'm looking for regular, ordinary people who can just be very open and honest about what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully somebody will watch or hear the story and say, I can easily relate to him.
Yes.
It's no longer, and you've known, I've said this over and over again, it is no longer about me. I'm at a point where I believe that not only is this my calling, this is the road that I have to travel on. This is why I was created.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no longer at a point where I question the universe or my God for why is it the trauma occurred.
Mm-hmm.
It has happened.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on the God's earth I can do again. It is now my past. And I'm going to live vicariously every day. And I'm using myself as a vessel, as a symbol, as a tool to not only give you and all the other men that I'm giving this platform to help tell the story, so that what we did when we were growing up, that the other young men who are coming up, seeing our story and how we've survived, that they don't do the things that we did. So we're at the close of the conversation.
Well, I just want to say before you close out that I believe it's your calling, it's our calling, and we're connected for a reason, and I'm totally open to, like I said at the last fundraiser, and yes, please donate to the organization because it's definitely a good cause, but I'm totally on board with supporting in any way, shape, form, or fashion moving forward, and I believe this is the work. We've not come together for no reason, and people that are watching this, you're watching it for a reason, and understand that silence is painful.
Oh, yes, it is.
And silence is not going to lead to healing. You need to have a place to speak about it, and the conversation is where it's at. So.
All right, so Jason, thank you so much for having this conversation with me, and please tune in to next week for an intriguing guest, and thank you so much for joining me in the conversation.